Hello, my name's Jen Wood. Welcome to today's episode of Coffeebreak. And today my special guest is Caroline Ambrus from Canberra. Now, we've known each other for about 20 years now.
Yes, that's right.
We met in 1993 at one of the inaugural Swan meetings.
Yes.
Now, Carol, I think you're amazing. You're irrepressible. You're an artist, you're a writer, you're a philosopher, you're an activist, a feminist, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Now, one of your latest enterprises has been your exhibition in Canberra.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that, please?
It was sort of an amalgamation of making images for about 40 years. And what I did was the images are all digitised, they're all on the computer, so I was combining images with backgrounds and I was adding a lot of other images in the process. So what I was actually doing, in a sense, was visually pulling the threads of my life together. And this is what people tend to do when they're in their 70s or whatever, you know, that they try to make sense out of their life and what's happened in their life. And that's what I was doing, and it actually worked quite well.
Okay, now you've got a friend called Eric.
Yes.
And he's very passionate about videoing. So he went and videoed the exhibition opening.
Yes, he did, yes.
Would you like to have a look at some of Eric's footage?
Absolutely.
And to introduce this exhibition is Rhiannon Lawrence, who is Caroline's granddaughter.
My take on realism and surrealism has had a major impact on our own artwork, and as we have grown up with her art as inspiration. There are always mysterious qualities about her artwork and a message hidden within. The message is always strong coming from her beliefs and experiences and portrayed by a clever use of symbolism. The message is not always obvious in her paintings. I love this about her artwork as it requires serious thought and creates a journey for the viewer.
What was it called?
Drawing You In.
Okay, now your paintings are absolutely stupendous. I love them. Let's go on a little tour and have a look at some of your artwork and the ideas behind them.
Okay. Here we have three children. There are two little boys in the background grabbing onto clothes that are way too big for them. And the little chappie sitting down has got an umbrella that's absolutely broken. They are young boys that have been forced to grow up before their time, and they're trying to become men, but they're finding it very difficult because they haven't been given all the right nurturance to make it to manhood. We have a little girl who's just sitting there pondering life, I guess. But in the background, the most interesting thing are the four horsemen, and they are the four horsemen of the apocalypse. And what's happening around these children is the apocalypse. We have them in a very bleak environment with the sun very big, and the horsemen are descending slowly on these children. The alphabet blocks represent, to me it represents, will they ever learn? Well, it's not likely, but hopefully we will learn, and hopefully the four horsemen won't come for quite some time, and hopefully the sun won't become a red giant, which we hear through astronomy is going to happen in a few million years. In this picture we have the classical picture, I'm not quite sure, the depiction of Venus, but anyway, she's pouring in the actual artwork. She's pouring water from a jug, but I've got her pouring snakes out onto the environment. They are all coming from the jug, and they are attacking the woman who's on the right, who is actually quite helpless and very vulnerable. It's a comment on women who put other women down all the time. That we are our own worst enemies, and we make life difficult for other women, which I find very sad. But as happens in real life is happening in this picture, that we have one of the snakes turning on the woman who's letting them loose on the environment. So she is, in turn, she will be affected by the evil that she's poured out onto the world. This picture here is actually the story of my 3 court cases that happened in the last 10 years, with us suing the ACT government and actually settling out of court. And there are a couple of other cases that were slightly related, arising from the Canberra bushfires. But I got a very close experience with the legal system, and the 3 women in the picture, or the 2 girls and 1 woman, the old woman is me, sounding off, all sound and fury, cranky at the whole system, fed up, saying my piece. The little girl with her hands in the air is laughing her head off. It's also me, because the whole thing is so stupid, and she just can't take it seriously. I mean, why should she? So she's just she's standing right back and she's amused. And then we have the little girl who's reading the book. She is involved, but she's not involved. She's got other things to do that are probably more important than the silly court cases that are going on in her life. We have the bird, of course, again, who's rising above everything and adopting a bird's eye view and of the action. And of course, in the background, we have the judges, the 3 judges. We've got one judge who looks reasonably serious. He's writing something with a quill in a book. And we have the other one who's fondling something, not quite sure what, and the other one beside him is sound asleep.
My name's Jan Wood and you're watching Coffee Break, and my special guest today is Caroline Ambrus from Canberra. Now, Carol has many hats, and one of them is her artist hat. And you were saying before that this latest series of paintings is a culmination or a pulling together of the threads of your life,
Yes.
to make some kind of cohesive sense
Yes.
out of all the experiences that you've had so far.
That's right, yes, that's what I did. I felt that the images that I did much earlier in the piece, when I was in my 40s, 50s or whatever, they were very singular. They were just standalone person, people, portraits, whatever. They didn't seem to have a context. It was missing. So I wanted to put them in some kind of context.
Okay, now it's also a kind of healing. You take something that is so powerfully imprinted in your memory, and then you take that and you put it on canvas.
Yes.
So it's kind of like taking it from the first person
Yes.
and putting it in the third person.
Yeah.
And it is a very strong healing technique.
It certainly is. I must say, at the exhibition, some of my pictures are very sort of a little bit nightmarish, and I was standing in the place where the exhibition was being held, and somebody was coming and looking, and I just said, "Oh, welcome to my nightmare," and he just laughed and he said, "Are you getting therapy?" And I said, "No, I don't need therapy. I do art."
Yes.
This picture here is actually a comment on the environment. We have the angry rising sea. You can see from the big waves in the background that are crashing down onto the sea, and we have the horses in the background who are trying to escape. It's not very clear whether they're escaping by going further into deep water or whether they're finding their way through it. we have the bird who's free, who can fly above the rising waters and get a bird's eye view basically about what's happening. And then we have the woman and the child, the mother and the little daughter, actually having fun. You know, they're totally oblivious to the rising waters, and they're enjoying themselves. And it's really a comment on what's happening at the moment with the environment, that we do have the waters rising, we do have the animals are trying to escape, people are trying to escape too, but for the most part the human population is just oblivious of the danger and is just having fun thanks to corporate capitalism and all the toys that we can play with. The three figures in cloaks are three women who are deep in mourning. The baby has been taken away. They don't know why. They don't know where the baby's gone. They don't know who took the baby. This reflects actually, firstly, the Aboriginal stolen generation, and then the other stolen generation where babies were taken away from white women because they weren't married. The figure of the man represents the bureaucrat who runs the system, and he says what goes. He says who's a good mother and who's not a good mother, who can keep their children and who lose their children. The background of the huge castle represents the plenty that society has, the wealth, the structures, the buildings. It's all wealth, but it is self-contained and people are disallowed from living there. The mothers who would need a home to live in don't have a home because they're not allowed to occupy any of those buildings.
Articulating. You can't, some things are so terrible that you can't speak about them.
Absolutely.
But you can actually express them in images, or you can disguise them.
Oh yes, I've got a lot of that in the exhibition. Heaps. Yeah, people in my life, things that have happened, it's all there.
Now you've led quite an extraordinary life. Her business is Irrepressible Press, and Carol is just absolutely irrepressible. I mean, some shocking things have happened to you, but you just sort of pick yourself up and dust yourself down and off you go.
Yeah, yes, it does work. It's very effective.
Okay.
And you have to really dig deep in your unconscious to dig out the memories and, to make the connection and then to make it visual. And it's a very emotional process. But yes, once you've gone through that process, the memories of manifest, you certainly feel better.
Yeah, it's sort of like lancing the boil.
Yes.
Okay, now I say to people, where you are now is the sum total of all the choices that you've made in your life so far. No matter what terrible thing happens, you still can choose how you react to it or what you do. Now, you're irrepressible. You've had some unspeakable things happen to you, but you pick yourself up, dust yourself down, and off you go. You don't get stuck there.
Not most of the time. There are occasions where anyone can get stuck, because you haven't resolved it, so you keep on going back over the same old issues. Or, if you feel that you don't have credibility or nobody believes you, you get stuck. That causes you to keep on regurgitating the same drama because you're trying to convince people that this really happened.
Yeah.
Or this person's really like that, And the best way to deal with that is if other people accept what you're saying, then that heals it. That's a healing.
And then you move on.
Absolutely.
There is a song, Riding the Blue Train to Nowhere. I can't imagine anything worse. I mean...
Yeah, the nowhere is frightening.
Nowhere is just so bleak. Yeah. It's not a direction that you want to go in.
No.
Yeah, I think the nowhere.
Not through choice.
No, nowhere is sort of depression.
Yes,
You're
yes,
just
yes,
nowhere.
yes, that'd describe it quite well.
You don't want to go to nowhere, so
No.
keep paddling in the other direction.
Yes, you do. But unfortunately, though, the choices you make you can only make choices when you have information. And I find a lot of people make terrible choices because they don't know what the alternatives are, And I mean, that happened to me when I was young.
Yeah.
I had no concept of the alternatives.
Yeah.
I was just driven in one direction, and that's where I went.
Okay, because society puts enormous pressure on us, and young people are particularly vulnerable. Now, for our generation, one of the strong points was if you didn't have a husband by the time you were 22 years old,
yes.
you were an old maid and a
Yes,
spinster,
yes,
and
yes.
that was the
Yes.
slur, you are just incapable of getting a man.
That's right. Yeah, it was a lot of pressure, and
And a lot of young women married a man that they didn't love just for the sake of having a husband. And
three go to the altar, and you end up marrying because you're pregnant.
yes,
That happened a lot.
yes. And we were talking yesterday about the stolen generation with the Aboriginal people, but it wasn't just the Aboriginal people who had their babies stolen. It was
No.
white girls too. The ones that had a baby
That's right.
out of wedlock were
Vilified.
vilified, and the babies
Were taken
forcibly taken off them.
but just straight after they were born.
Yeah, and they didn't even have a look at the baby. It was
Quite
just
often that
so
happened, yeah.
cruel,
Yeah.
so terrible.
Yeah, that's why girls married, because they knew what would happen if they didn't marry.
Yeah.
And so they ended up with nasty husbands. Oh, and our generation, of course, married an awful lot of refugees from Europe, and they were very damaged, a lot of them.
Yes.
It's taken a couple of generations for that damage to
Yeah.
actually subside and breed out.
I know war does have a terribly damaging effect on.
Yep.
One of Carol's interests at the moment is researching the psychopath. Now, it's a very confronting topic, and Carol, I haven't ever heard anyone talk about it.
Yeah.
Would you tell the audience why you are so interested in this topic?
I married one. That's the long and short of it.
I imagine
He
a lot.
was classic psychopath. And actually, psychopath is a wrong word, because path means sickness, psycho means mental. It's not a mental sickness. Psychopaths, or so-called sociopaths, are perfectly normal human beings. They've just got different brains, and that's been proven by brain research. This picture here is about the psychopath next door. As you can see, he's coming out of the white background. He's very charming and beguiling. He's a liar, though. He's a cheat. He's a thief. He's rather nasty in a real psychopathic way. She was attracted by the psychopath, but over the period of time she learnt about his real nature and what he was really like. She is protected. She's protecting herself. She's distancing herself from him. She has her protectors. The wolves are forming a ring around her, and the birds are protecting her from above. She, if you see the bird, the bigger bird has ripped the psychopath's mask right off. So you could say the birds are her helpers. So she's reached a point in her life where she knows who she is, she knows where she's going, and she knows what she wants to do. And it is certainly well known that psychopaths don't pick on people like that, but they pick on people who are vulnerable and needy.
Okay, so they have, they're missing the real human qualities like compassion and love and honour
Yeah.
and generosity
Yep.
and kindness.
Yeah, they're cruel. Some of them are very cruel.
And they're into power.
Absolutely. 25%. The figures are of CEOs and heads of organisations and like people in politics and whatever. 1 in 4 is a psychopath. That's a reasonably well established figure. Of the general population, about 2-3% are psychopaths. So the overrepresentation in the halls of power is because that's what psychopaths want, is power.
Okay, now you said you were very good at recognising them. How would
Yes.
you recognise one?
Charm. They talk a lot. Very, very good patter. This is not to say that people who are charming and
Yes.
never and talk a lot are necessarily psychopath. They're not. But it depends on how the person approaches you. You know, what they're saying to you and what is their demeanour, and I've just got a fairly heightened sense of who can be a psychopath. And
So once bitten, twice shy.
you have to learn, otherwise you die.
Yeah.
You know, otherwise you don't survive, because these people, well, they're killers in a way, because they'll kill your soul.
They do the killing of beauty. They
And the lies, you know, it doesn't take long to suss out that they're lying or they're exaggerating, you know, or they're presenting a sort of heightened image of themselves to impress you. And they always seek out people who they feel that are vulnerable. They're like wolves seeking out, you know, vulnerable prey. Now this is also about the psychopath. He's not next door anymore. It's a psychopath that got into this woman's life. And as you can see from her demeanour, she's very vulnerable. She's in a way attracted, but in a way totally repelled. He's wearing a cloak. The other psychopath was wearing a mask. He's wearing a cloak that cloaks some of the evil within him, but the evil is just spilling out all over the place. It's become a part of the environment. She's sort of a bit oblivious to the evil, though she can't see it. She's looking far away somewhere else. So it has a little bit of a sexual content, but that's left well and truly up to the imagination. You can see the storm clouds are gathering, and the evil is disappearing into the background, which it's always there.
I believe most people want to trust.
Oh, and that's what psychopaths take advantage.
To trust.
Yeah, that's their ploy is to establish trust very quickly, early in the conversation.
And I suspect a lot of people have had a terrible experience with one of these people. Like I had an experience, but my stalker was a woman. So it's not necessarily just a male thing.
Oh, no.
It's both.